Everybody goes through a time where they feel inadequate or incompetent. Some of us can feel that way more than others. Many people are so busy putting themselves down that they actually fail to thrive in life. They actually stop trying to learn and better themselves. They'll just become discouraged and depressed, and that's easy for any of us to fall into. Hey everyone, Strive here. I just wanted to pause the video for a moment and to thank everybody that has joined me so far on this channel with the videos that have come out so far. I'm really passionate about helping everybody navigate through various areas of their life, so I hope that the videos that have come out thus far has resonated with you in some shape or form. If you want to talk about anything that's been discussed further, be sure to join me on Twitch every Tuesday and Thursday and we can talk. And while you're here, why not go ahead and like this video and subscribe, so that way you get notified every time a new video comes out. And with that being said, on to the rest of the video. I think that sometimes it's even really hard when you try to make every effort. Tell yourself that you're going to have a good day and that you're capable and that you're going to get through that Monday just fine. You're going to get through that meeting just fine or that deadline just fine. And sometimes it just feels like the cards are stacked against you. And so something will go wrong and you'll tell yourself, well, maybe I'm not going to be able to get through this. I'm not going to be able to complete this in time. I'm not going to be able to do this thing. And so you just get into your head and you start talking yourself down to almost a point of being paralyzed and nothing gets done. And you actually are able to get yourself in a spot where you actually are literally setting yourself up for failure because you're just in this state of doubt that you're just frozen. And yeah, you don't get it done on time. You don't have a good day. The self-doubt usually can come from things in your past where you've put all of your effort into something, you've tried over and over again, and for one reason or another, it just didn't come through. When something arises, you immediately go back to that same time. Well, it didn't work then, why is it going to work now? And so you'll take past experiences and apply them to today, thinking that the same thing is going to happen again. And you convince yourself before the outcome even comes to pass, whether or not you're going to be successful. We're gonna talk about a couple of things to just, again, remind ourselves some of the standard things that we normally do when things aren't going the way that we had hoped, and just reminders for us to not let that inside voice dictate who we are and what we're going to accomplish either in that day or in that week or in that month. We talked about how when we get into that sense of self-doubt, we usually go back to really traumatic experiences. And they can stem from decades ago. We'll just suddenly remember something traumatic that happened that can immediately convince us that we are incapable of doing something or we're incapable of being who we are meant to be. Some of us may have parents that have ingrained in us what we can and can't be, who we can and can't be, what our careers are to be, or we've had teachers that maybe weren't as invested as a teacher to help out when you were struggling and you felt like you weren't going to get something. There's even been maybe work peers or students that you've gone to school with that you remember their face, their voice, their mannerism when they're telling you something that really stuck with you. And then for me, the next one is the heavy hitter for me, and that is past relationships. It is really easy, especially when you're in a relationship with somebody. You obviously let all of those walls down that the general public never gets past. So you've shared very intimate details of your life and who you are and what you aspire to be, what your fears are, and somebody has used it against you. And that can cut really deep, and it leaves an impression that even after you may have gotten out of a toxic relationship and you look back and you're like, why was I even there? You know now that that relationship is done, but the impressions that they left on you is something that you carry for a long time. And it's really hard to let those things just pass on by. It's actually sometimes easier to let the trauma dictate how you're going to move along. You can say, well, you know, that past relationship told me I was never going to amount to anything, so you know what? I probably just won't. It's harder for us to stand up to that past, either that parent or that teacher, that peer, or bad bosses, bad employers, to stand up to something in your past that you can't confront and say to yourself, I'm not this. I'm not going to be this. I'm not going to be less than anything that I know that I can be. I think that with trauma, there's no real sense of healing trauma. Trauma sticks with you. It's how you decide what trauma is going to play in your life. You can let trauma dictate your every move or lack thereof. You can let trauma be an excuse to not doing anything, or you can let trauma make you push harder. Trauma can be a reminder of what you don't want to become. Trauma never really goes away. We all have trauma, one way or another. Some are very dark traumatic experiences, some are just nuances, but they all affect us in a very different way, a very personal way. So it's not about healing trauma, it's about what we let it do to our day-to-day. So it's important that obviously we identify and we know how trauma dictates what we do, and then what we're going to let our reaction be to it. So like for me, my trauma dictated all the way back to elementary school. I was picked on for as long as I can remember. As the years went by, and of course, being in school and that type of trauma as we're growing and developing and really not knowing what's right and what's wrong and how to overcome, that trauma just starts to manifest and manifest and manifest. And it repeats and it manifests. That trauma is always going to be there for me. I will always look back on my life and remember that one traumatic event of just being in school and being bullied the entire school experience. And for a long time, especially when I was in school and I was living it, I never understood why. I never understood what set me apart from everybody else. But instead of letting the memories of people telling me what I couldn't become, I use that to drive me every day as a way to show them what I'm capable of. So you can have kind of that internal conversation with yourself and confront like those inner demons to say, look at what I've become. Look at what I've done. You've told me that I couldn't be this, but I actually became more than that. It's important to remember when you start to doubt yourself and really think that you can't achieve this, you can't go there, you can't aspire for that. Give yourself that pause to know where that's coming from. It has to come from somewhere. The majority of the time, it's traumatic experiences that have told us at times when we're struggling, when we're hurt, where somebody takes advantage and ingrains into us some really hard, untruth things that we take so serious that we allow it to dictate what our future is going to be. Now, we know where the trauma is coming from. We don't want to sit in that trauma. We just want to get through the day. We just want to get through our work week. We just want to get through dealing with XYZ. We don't want to sit and think about our trauma. We just want to think about how we're going to get past it. Now that we've identified where in the world that trauma came from, how are we going to push past it? This is the tough part. This is the tough part, okay? I struggle with it every day. The person next to you struggles with it every day. Your friends struggle with it every day. Because one of the easiest things to do is to tell yourself that you can't and to just stop whatever it is you're trying to do. It's the easiest. So how do we let go of that criticism? So when we get into our own heads and we're telling ourselves that we can't do something, sometimes you just have to tell that inner voice to shut up. It's not about solving trauma. It's not about figuring out how to tell yourself something good. Sometimes you just have to tell it to stop. Just stop. Just stop. Just enough to create silence. And allow that silence to bring yourself to the present, because usually that voice is living in the past, in that trauma. So telling that voice to stop just for a moment, for you to breathe and compose and get back to the present, is just enough time to bring yourself forward and say, I am not in the past. I am here right now. I am a creation of good and bad experiences, and I'm going to use those experiences to push me forward into bigger and better things. That little voice, we all have it. Sometimes it's screaming so loudly because we've let it get to a point that it has numbed us to where we don't move. So if there's any way to just put it to the side or silence it for a moment, it's just enough for you to tell yourself that you're taking it back and you're taking charge of here and now and going forward. That's a really hard thing to do. Those three things, that's asking a lot sometimes. because that voice knows exactly what to say, knows exactly how to say it, knows exactly what events from the past to bring up to hit you the hardest, knows exactly how to bring up that raw emotion that sinks in your gut. It knows you better than you know yourself. Self-criticism is a very hard thing to overcome. So it's going to take practice. It's going to take time. This is not like just a prepackaged, okay, do this. It works like a charm every time. We're good. It's not, because we all have different trauma. It all speaks to us in different ways. It pulls no punches, and it learns very quickly. It adapts. So just when you think you have charge of that voice inside, guess what? It's already adapted, and it's changing the way that it's delivering that information to you, and it's finding a way to circumnavigate something that you've already worked on to stop that voice. So that's why, while you can do these things, it's something you'll have to keep reapplying and reaffirming and doing it over and over again to realize, where's this coming from? What trauma dictated this? Telling that voice to be quiet. The voice doesn't run your life, you do. And then pushing forward. One other thing that you can do is, since you have all of this inner monologue that's going on, another great way to stop that voice is to have an external voice that's not yours. It's always important to surround yourself with people, actually different groups of people, to have that one friend that can just tell you to snap out of it when you need somebody to tell you that. Maybe a friend that can offer just a shoulder for you to just get everything out because you need to vent. Maybe a friend that you know that you don't have to talk about it, but you want a distraction just to silence that inner monologue for a moment. Somebody to play games with, somebody to just talk about life, talk about something totally unimportant, just to get that voice to quiet for just a few peaceful moments. Having those types of avenues in your life, those people in your life, is enough to silence that self-criticism and to remind you that there are people in your life that want you there because they want to support you, even in tough times. Because guess what? You're their support too. Because you know that when times are tough and you go to them so that you can vent, you know that you would do the exact same for them if they're going through something. Those type of people in your life, you're each other's support system for that exact thing. Because guess what? Everybody has dealt with trauma in one form or another. You've been able to silence the voice for a few moments. Now what? Because you've only got a few moments. So what are some things that you can do to try and prepare yourself? Because we know that that trauma lives inside of us, and we know that there's different ways that we can utilize it. We can use it as a tool to propel us, or it could be something that paralyzes us. What can we do to prepare for when that happens? Because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen next week. It's going to happen. So now that you know it's going to happen, you've seen it happen all the time. So now can you do to be prepared for when those moments come up? When you're feeling that sense of self-doubt, it is so quick. If you were to take right now, really, if I asked you to give me just 5 things of things that you don't like about yourself, that you don't like, you would give me a list of 10. But if I asked you to give me a list of 5 things that you like, it's going to take you longer to give me a list of 5. And the reason for that is because, again, when we live in that self-doubt, we create those lists so easily of things that we don't like about ourselves, because that's easier. It's harder to talk about things that we do like about ourselves. One way to prepare is to make a list of 5 things that is good about you, that you like about you, legitimate things. And when you wake up every morning, you're going to read those 5 things to yourself. And by reading it out loud, kind of reaffirms that we are confident in who we are. So it allows you to start your day with positive self-thinking. Because some of us, when we wake up, we immediately say, oh, it's going to be a rough day, and I know that I'm not going to get this done, and I'm not going to accomplish this, and it's going to be a hard day. We have the capability of both telling ourselves great things and convincing ourselves of bad things at the same time. So one way to kind of counteract that is to make the list of 5 things and read it out loud and genuinely feel it. Don't just, I am a nice I like breathing the air. Don't make it like it's homework that you're not invested in. Actually make it 5 things that really make you want to drive forward and to do more that day. The next thing that you can do is to set reasonable goals. Goals are great. We all have them, whether it's financial, success, career, romance, family. We all have these very large life-altering goals, and those are great. But sometimes those goals can seem so out of reach. So make sure that you're also setting up goals that you can obtain throughout the day, throughout the week, just enough for you to see ahead for you to achieve those. Because when you look at the big goals that you have, it's really easy to talk yourself out of it for that day or that week. And guess what? Months go by and you feel like you're no further along in those big life-altering goals. You always have to set small goals that propel you towards that larger goal. So make sure you're setting those, whether it's at work and you say, okay, I want to get through these 3 things before the weekend, or I want to have this presentation written up and ready to go. If you're a streamer, you tell yourself, okay, I want to edit this video, or I want to edit at least half of the video before the night is over, or I want to work on the thumbnail for YouTube, or you know what, I want to at least get a tweet out because I want to make sure that I'm being interactive with my followers. Just something enough that when you go to sleep, that you're able to tell yourself, I got some stuff done, even if they're small. And then of course, you write these goals, you better get busy because nobody is going to do the work for you. You have to invest time in yourself, just like you invest time in everything else in your life. You are also your own project, and the project can either succeed or fail because of what you do or don't do. And it's exhausting. It's the hardest project that we have in our lives. And it's easier to allow ourselves to get distracted with other projects than to work on the most important one, which is ourselves. Now, this next one is tough because I think some of us are nervous to pat ourselves on the back for even the little things. And I think that stems from a lot of things, either with family or things in our society, where if you accomplish something and you want to rejoice that you've gotten something done, that maybe not everybody understands why you're so excited about it, but you're over the moon. Be over the moon. I think that based off of certain people's past experiences, myself included, you would accomplish something and somebody's always quick to ask you, okay, but what about the next thing? Yeah, that's nice you got that thing done, but what about the next thing? You said you were going to do that too. What about that? Where are you at with that other thing? So much to the point that you've kind of taught yourself to stop and say, I got that thing done, but I know I have, 5 other things to do. So I really shouldn't tell myself I did a good job until I got everything done, because that would seem like I'm selfish. And the thing is that you deserve to enjoy your success, no matter how small the success is. So make sure that you set time apart to do that. Sometimes our days get ahead of us. Even if you set 5 goals for the day, things happen. Things come up. Life gets busy. That's okay. There is no way for you to plan that. You could only set up goals based off of what you thought your day was going to look like. That's all you can do. Things come up. Emergencies happen. New things have to get done that you didn't expect. That's okay. So let's say you only got 2 out of the 5 done. Okay. So be happy you got the 2 done. Just because you didn't get all 5 things done doesn't mean that you have to tell yourself that you can't be happy that you got something accomplished. You have every right to congratulate yourself over any accomplishment that you make. So make sure that you're not allowing yourself to stifle that congratulatory self-talk, because you do deserve it. And then the last thing, which is fine by me, is reward your efforts. Whatever that looks like to you. If you want to reward yourself with time to yourself, it doesn't necessarily have to be things. You can reward yourself with some downtime. You can reward yourself with some self-care. You can reward yourself with playing a video game, watching a movie, just some downtime for you as kind of a reward. I got this accomplished, so I am going to set this time to the side as a way to reward myself. You absolutely are allowed to do that. You do not have to wait to complete big goals to reward yourself. Find ways to reward yourself creatively to where you don't feel guilty or feel like you're undeserving. Make sure that you're having that conversation with yourself to say, you know what, I did good. I got 2 out of the 5 things done today. So I'm going to catch up on that TV show that I wanted to. Make sure that you're doing that, because If you don't reward yourself, that internal monologue is not going to work the next day to try and get more goals done. Keep that in mind. So, like I said, this is one of those things that there's no just apply this to every week and every week will be just fine. It is something that you can only look at on a day-to-day scale. Some things you can look at with your life as far as who you are, what you want to be, what you want your goals to be, where you want to go. You can kind of look at those things on a week, on a month, 6-month span, and really figure out where you want to go with it. When it comes to self-doubt and when it comes to confidence, that's a daily thing. It is really hard to try and figure out how to maintain confidence when you're looking so far out. Because when self-doubt sets in, all it cares about is bringing your day down. It doesn't care about bringing your week down because it knows that once your day is brought down, your week is soon to follow. So make sure that you're focusing on the day so that you can build it into a week and you can build it into a month and into 6 months. We know that the world isn't perfect, right? We're not perfect. We make mistakes. I make mistakes. You make mistakes. We all make mistakes. So we talked about all this, conquering self-doubt and thinking about how you're going to overcome it and telling that voice to be quiet. And it's really easy, right? Well, no, it's not easy. Some days the voice is louder than we'd like. Some days the voice brings up a trauma that we just don't know how to push past. It happens. It's okay. But the important thing is to make sure that you don't let one day determine the outcome of many days. If you have a day that you just feel conquered by that internal monologue, it's okay. It happens. Just don't let it dictate tomorrow. Don't let it dictate the week. When you go to sleep at night and you wake up the next morning, allow yourself that chance to have that reset. It is okay to look back at yesterday and say, man, yesterday was not great, but today's a new day. Today is new, and I'm going to try again. I'm going to try again, and I'm going to try again. Don't allow one day to dictate the outcome of the next, because all of a sudden you'll wake up one morning and look back and 6 months has gone by because that self-doubt was able to shrink the weeks down to feel like they were nothing. So it's important to give yourself grace. This is something that is extremely hard to do for self-doubt, because with everything that is going on right now in the world, everything that people are competing against, it is just really easy for us to just give in and just accept. So make sure that you're giving yourself that grace to say, today wasn't great, but we don't know what tomorrow will be. And actually take the time to measure your growth. Say, like, when a week is done, you look back and take that moment to reflect. Say, okay, all right, so Monday wasn't great, but Tuesday was a lot better. Wednesday was a bit of a struggle. Thursday was fabulous. Really look back and see how your week was and really evaluate kind of that inner monologue. How much did it dictate my actions? How much did it dictate my accomplishments? And really measure that growth, because it's worth seeing the accomplishments that you've made. The other thing too is to stay self-aware. So remember, we said that this is an everyday struggle, because like I said, that inner monologue is always adapting. So make sure that you're self-aware of that inner monologue, because it can be tricky. It finds different ways, it finds different things to tell you from your past, and it can sneak its way without you even realizing it. Make sure that you're really watching what you're telling yourself and what you're convincing yourself, because it can adapt. And then lastly, of course, is to enjoy the journey. So remember, our trauma can be one of two things. It can dictate who we are, what we become, what we don't become. It really has the capability of deciding what we accomplish in the next 6 months. And it is up to you. So as you accomplish good days and good weeks, make sure that you're enjoying that journey too, that you're looking back and actually seeing, wow, look at where I've come from. Look at the things that I have been through and the things that I have overcome, and look what I have been able to accomplish. That was conquering self-doubt and becoming more confident. Lights. Got him.
Okay, I'm in.
So let's get the out of here.
It's taking so long.
I need to pump all the water out before we take off.
Can't you do it any faster?
I'm almost